All right, I want to set the stage with this really important question, and it's quite simple. What's the difference between company branding and employer branding?
Company branding is generally promoting your product or service to generate revenue, where for employer branding, we're taking that secret sauce of a company, your culture, what makes you great, and we're packing that up. And our product is the culture in the company, and we're using that to sell potential candidates. So our buyers are candidates versus on the company or corporate side, your buyers are people who want to purchase your product or service.
From your perspective, why is implementing an employer branding strategy so important?
Because in this very competitive talent landscape, you need a way to stand out from your competitors. What makes you great? Why should top talent want to work for your company? Why should top talent want to help you hit your goals, help you innovate, help you define a new category if that's the world that you operate in? So it's really important to implement employer branding early and often, because it really does set you up for future success as you look to hire top talent.
Something really important there. You should implement it early on to set your company up for success. Mm-hmm. So what are some activities or some initiatives that someone in a marketing department or in an HR department, because we work pretty hand in hand, what could they do to kind of get started if they don't have an employer branding strategy already?
First is buy-in from the business. And when I say buy-in from the business, from the CEO down, having those informational conversations before this dedicated resource starts really lays the groundwork. It's like a farmer trying to plant their crops on soil that just cannot sustain nutrients, and so you really don't want someone of this type of role coming into a company where they're already on the 8 ball. They have to work extra hard to just validate why they're there. We're naturally a team of one. We sit under talent acquisition. We don't really have budget, and a lot of what we're trying to do is just trying to justify our existence of why we belong. And so having those conversations of we're going to hire this person. Here's what we want them to do, but we also need to leverage their expertise on how they can influence our company. And so every company approaches employer brand different. For some companies, it's that that cultural rah-rah, be the voice, be that fun culture cheerleader, and you have companies that treat employer brand career marketing as marketing support sales. It's tactical. It's coming up with measurable campaigns that's going to drive top of funnel and tracking that success and really operationalizing employer branding. And I think, that's where I'm starting to kind of see the maturity of the function going. From early on, it was hey, let's use social media to showcase how great a culture is. That's great. Everyone's doing that. But now let's pivot to really just soup to nuts. Let's show that employer branding actually can have impact and can actually help talent acquisition hit their hiring goals.
I think that really brings in an interesting take as well. How would you try to engage more of the internal stakeholders, or not even C-suite stakeholders, but the employees to take part in the employer branding themselves?
Great question. First, it starts off with an engagement survey. You have to understand how do current employees feel about your company? What are the sentiments? How's morale? If morale is low, it's probably not the best time to ask your colleagues to talk about their experience. And that's just the nature of the life cycle of a company. Every company goes through their ups and downs. And so if your company is experiencing some low morale due to external factors, a lot happening in the world, X, Y, and Z, maybe this is the best time to ask your colleagues to share their experience. I take the same approach if there's kind of a best place to work on the horizon. I always ask our HR leaders, hey, how's morale doing? Because we don't want to ask people to rate us on how great it is to work here if right now it may not be the best place to work. So start with an internal engagement survey. Understand what are colleagues saying, what do they like, what they don't like, and if you feel like like your company's in a good place. And then I would say there are different ways to do this. One is just a call to action. And this depends on the size of the company, your industry. I worked in industries that are heavily regulated, so they're kind of like touchy about what employees say and how they say it. My company, Refine Labs, we encourage our colleagues to talk on LinkedIn. So if you do a search for Refine Labs employees, you're going to see a lot of employees just kind of sharing their thoughts across LinkedIn, and that actually helps with your employment brand. The stats that talk about how consumers don't trust brands, they trust their friends. Are the same things. Like I don't trust the company to say how great it is to work there. I trust people who I know at the company to say how great it is to work there. And so to get back to the question, it can be a simple call to action to your colleagues. Hey, we really would love to see people sharing their experience. Here's why it's great for the company. Kind of keep it at that. There are also companies who gamify it. So there are ways of tracking it manually. I know there are different service providers out there that offer some type of SaaS platform where you can even like kind of serve up content for colleagues. And I believe LinkedIn has a tool like this as well. But you can serve up pre-scripted content if you really want to kind of control the message and use that and ask your colleagues to engage and kind of share that content. And you can award them for their participation and whatnot, kind of gamify, have a fun leaderboard and whatnot. So there are different tactics, but I would say is it starts with what's internal sentiment like, but also what's the goal of this? What are you trying to achieve?
For you, what are some key metrics that a marketer could use to kind of identify, I'm going on the right path, I'm starting to really grasp and become successful in this new industry?
I have a few thoughts. One thought is I'm a big believer on give a marketer a defined time frame, or give a recruitment marketer, employer brander a defined time frame to run some paid campaigns or to run a paid campaign that's going to help you build benchmark data. That benchmark data will be what you use to measure future success or future progress of future campaigns, essentially. And so if I run a paid campaign that says, hey, that's targeting software engineers in Boston, and someone goes, hey, how do you know this successful? Can't really tell you if I don't have any historical data to rely on. And so I always like to say, hey, let me just run one campaign. It can be as little as $1,000, brand awareness, keep it broad, but that's really going to let us know if future campaigns are in line with this this benchmark campaign. If that's not the case, because I know that, again, budgets and employer branding are always a fun conversation depending on the company that you're in, but employer branding cannot be successful unless talent acquisition's data is up to par. If TA has crap data, you can't expect an employer brander to come in and have this like grand plan that's going to have concrete metrics where they can say, we did this goal, that goal, that goal. Because if TA isn't confident in their metrics, how can employer branded be confident that they're supporting TA? And so, and that may sound controversial, but if I'm tied to TA as my success, then TA has to be able to provide me with just base level information so I know if I am supporting them appropriately. And so one way of doing this is your talent funnel, so your recruitment funnel, where so like with the recruitment funnel, employer brand sits at the top of the funnel. So your consideration, your awareness, those pieces. But then the bottom of the funnel, that's recruitment. So if I'm at the top and you're at the bottom, I need you ideally to let me know through conversion data, well, if we want to hire one software engineer, how many phone screens does it take? how many interviews, how many technical assessments, how many offers. I need that level of information. And if you don't have it, then let's kind of eyeball it together. Let's make a best educated guess. But that type of conversion data really helps us to measure the success of our work, or else we're just kind of guessing and hoping that, hey, that's a high number, so I guess we're doing well.
Really well said. Why don't we take a small step back, and can you tell me, how can a marketer and their organization set themselves up for success right from the get-go?
This isn't just like a little cherry on top, or a little like a fad. Like, in order for this to be effective, you need to take it serious. And so companies need to understand, why are we hiring this person, and how is this person going to be successful? I worked at a company where there was no engagement data, none. Leadership did not believe in surveying employees. Well, as an employer brander, I don't know the sentiments of employees. And so, to kind of go back to our earlier conversation, why would I ask colleagues to vocalize their experience on a social platform if I don't really know to what extent how colleagues feel? What are their drivers? What keeps them here? What can we improve on? No company is perfect, but understanding from our colleagues the good, the bad, the ugly, we can shape our strategy around that. We can influence certain levers to say, hey, for this month, let's focus on X, Y, and Z. For this month, let's focus on what we need to improve on. But we know that because our employees have told us that. And so really understand why you're hiring this person, how you're going to set them up for success. My current company, Refine Labs, so like when I came in the door about 2 months ago, there was like a project list that the leadership had created for me. And my boss, who's the VP of people, was like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, just something, hey, like, here's what we want to tackle, but you're the expert. We hired you for a reason. So what are your thoughts? And that's great. That's a great collaboration coming in the door, because I can then say, that's feasible, that's not feasible. Oh, in order for me to do this, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, we want to do this. We're not mature enough as a company. Let's push that off. Even for how I'm graded in my role, I had say in that. My boss is like, hey, here's how we're going to grade you. What are your thoughts? And I can appropriately influence how I'm going to be graded, and not just reporting into someone who just thinks that I'm just some like social media like factory just pumping out LinkedIn posts all day. It's like, it's not going to make me effective at all. It's not. But you'll find that employer branders also have certain strengths. So like my strength is strategy and content creation. You have employer branders whose strengths are writing, and they're great copywriters, and they're great and like they're just great at putting just like thoughts on paper. You have employer branders that are great with analytics. And so as you're interviewing candidates, really uncover what that employer brand strengths are, and if they can help you out with your goals.
What would you recommend to individuals in this field? How should they look at the data to optimize their employer branding channels? And are there key milestones that they should really monitor based on your experience?
This is a good one. Focus on conversion data. Two things. One is, if it's social media, focus on engagement over followers. You can have all the followers in the world, but if no one's engaging with your content, then your content's not resonating with your audience. So focus on improving engagement, and that's through A/B testing. That's through looking at the times of the day, the days of the week. So really A/B testing, experimenting with what types of content resonates with who and when. That's really going to allow you to really obtain the right data points to know if your content is resonating. But then on the other side, it's conversion data. And so looking at how are candidates moving through the funnel, and looking at outliers to find out where you can optimize and make necessary process improvements. So if you're having candidates that are, hey, we're really good at tracking candidates in the funnel, but then between the phone interview and a technical assessment or a phone interview and another step, there's a lot of drop off. Okay, so what are we asking in the phone interviews? What's happening? Why is there a outlier number of candidates who aren't passing a phone interview? What's going on? That's really how employer brand can be effective. There's vanity data. Vanity data is great if you're just trying to show, hey, look, I'm doing a good job. But I really drive impact by really going in and saying what's not working, and then let me show that I can fix that, and then tracking that progress, and then building your data off of that. Now, I have fun, fancy, cool looking dashboards. You look at, oh, wow, that's so cool. But like, that doesn't mean anything if your TA partners are being like, you're not adding any value right now. You're just posting some nice culture posts. That's getting no engagement.
That's fair. Okay. Is there one particular instance in your career or a particular campaign that you saw really worked in your professional career when it came to an employer branding campaign?
Yes, there's two. There's one that was strictly just like brand awareness. It's like a billboard on the side of a highway. You're just kind of measuring impressions. But one company like pre-pandemic, we ran some elevator ads throughout the city of Boston, Cambridge, targeting talent competitors, and so obtaining access to our property management advertising platform, using like a Google Maps overlay. We could see like, okay, you have a property in New York City on this street. Actually, let me see who are your tenants in that building. Oh, X, Y, and Z are my talent competitors. Let me run an ad in that building. So ideally, my target candidates are seeing my ad in those elevators, and so that was a lot of fun. Something that's more measurable at similar company, just like running some paid campaigns on LinkedIn, targeting software engineers in Dublin, Ireland. It was our first time in Dublin, and so it was a good sense of is our messaging going to work by saying, hey, we are Boston's #1 X. Is that going to resonate with an Irish market? Hey, our product is rated top by these outlets. Is that going to resonate with our target candidates? So you're really using A/B testing with messaging and imagery really allowed us to kind of fine tune because the engagement data from candidates told us what was working and what wasn't working. So if a piece of creative copy received low engagement, okay, let's take it out of the fold. Oh, this is doing well. Let's channel resources to that piece of copy and creative. And so that's a lot of fun. Everything you do is a learning moment, everything. There are individuals on LinkedIn who are kind of like the anti-heroes, I like to call them, that are pointing out the discrepancies in employer branding. So kind of a statement I said earlier, where it's like, when I was starting, it felt like it was just a lot of like rah-rah culture fluff, where there's individuals on LinkedIn, you have to find them that are like, let's not do things how they used to be. And that's happening right now in marketing with how, like, my company, Final Apps, how we approach demand generation. We're trying to show the marketing world, your old way of doing things isn't working. You got to do things differently. And we're showing you how to do things differently. And so with employer branding, trying to showcase that employer branding is effective when you treat it as, my goal is to make TA effective. I'm big on recruiter enablement. There's sales enablement at B2B companies that try to enable your sales staff to be the best that they can be. Well, it's my job to make our recruiters the best that they can be from an external content standpoint. So from the messages that you're sending out to candidates, what's that first message look like? What do your follow-up messages look like? Are you just sending one message and hoping waiting for a response? Are you sending follow-ups? Do you know the stats of how many follow-up messages it takes to get someone on the hook? So yes, there's industry historical data that's a tried and true, but there's tactics that we can revolutionize and say, why are we still doing that? Is there a better way of doing that? Is there a way of saying, hey, let's do something different, let's showcase, let's be able to track the results of that? Sometimes you can't. Sometimes just a gut feeling. When you've been doing this for a while, sometimes you just have a gut feeling, but you have to cut your teeth and go through those reps and go through those hardships of doing it how they used to be in order to kind of formulate that hypothesis and say, I feel like I could do something a little differently. Let me mess around and see. And if you demonstrated some type of success from that gut feeling, document it and share it and collect feedback, because maybe someone feels differently. Maybe someone disagrees with you, but maybe something that disagreement can help influence something that you're trying to do. So again, those data points influence everything you do.
I have so many more questions, but I will hold them because I hope one day I'll be able to have this opportunity again, that we'll connect and we'll be able to collaborate. But I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Jason. It's been so amazing to have this opportunity. So thank you for all your insight, and any last words?
Samantha, thank you for reaching out. And this was a really fun conversation. So my pleasure. Thank you.